You want to know something super depressing? I should be on a plane right now.
Oh, yeah.
As we speak, on a plane over the Atlantic Ocean on my way to Milan, but instead I get to be here, which is fun. Guys, there's going to be a lot of technical issues in these next two videos, so deal with it.
This is our life right now. If all else
Anyway.
fails, just make us voices again.
Yeah, that wasn't a fun time. Anyway, hey lit lovers. Welcome to StormCrows TV, the channel where two lit chicks talk about all things reading and writing. I'm Emily Sloan.
I'm Allegra.
And today we are continuing our read-along of George R.R. Martin's A Game of Thrones, which is the first book in a Song of Ice and Fire series.
If you're just joining us, be sure to subscribe and check out our other videos as well. There's a lot of them now. Well, kind of a lot. Some.
Enough to, fall asleep to. Not that I do that with anything. Anyway, so today we're going to be discussing Bran 5, Tyrion 5, and Ned 10. And technically also Cat 7, Jon 5, and Tyrion 6, but that's going to be split and put in a second episode, so we can try and keep these as short as possible.
Em is the newbie. I've read all these books before, so why don't you go ahead and start off with the newbie summaries?
Well, I would, but my dog ate my homework.
He barely nibbled it.
Do you know how depressing this was to fall asleep and accidentally drop that on the floor and then find out that my dog also can eat up George R.R. Martin? Fortunately, I did do the reading before he did that. So, Bran. He's riding a horse, which is awesome, and that's at least how he starts the chapter. But he's also growing up, and that's sweet. And we get to hear all the juicy deets going down in King's Landing, such as the Kingslayer totally wrecking Pup. So that's not great. Also, Mom went and caught the dude who designed the saddle for you, so guess she's not coming home anytime soon. Well, then your big brother gets to ride off in search of the direwolves, and you get to be alone with your thoughts, Bran. And 6 wildlings who decide to kill you and use you for ransom. It depends on which one you're talking to. Robb and the direwolves show up all ready to do battle, and the slaughter commences with Theon Greyjoy saving Bran with an arrow from behind. Robb ends up walking away from the fray with the wildling prisoner and a chip on his shoulder. That's all I got.
I kind of like this chapter a little bit because you get to see the world beyond Winterfell with the kids a little. One thing I didn't catch until this reread was the Wintertown has less than half populated in the summer, and it kind of is an echo to Vaste Dothrak, where you got this town that's just built and ready and waiting for people, and it's just not inhabited most of the time.
I did catch that imagery. There was a feeling of a sort of welcome solitude. Sometimes when you get this vast sort of emptiness, you're reminded of a ghost town, and you don't necessarily like that feeling. But you get the sense that, at least in the north, they don't like people. So this is kind of a nice tone.
Less than 1/5 populated during the summer. And there's also a little touch of foreshadow because there are more people coming in. There are people in the Wintertown that haven't met the direwolves and don't know the Stark kids from before yet. And the newcomers are all freaked out by the ginormous wolves, I think, as you rightfully could be.
I don't dislike Bran as much as I thought I was going to. Because what very little of the show I saw, I wasn't super attached to him. But just in general, I like the way Bran is handled in the book. I think he's a believable child who's kind of being forced to mature, which makes sense given the setting. I think he succeeds with Bran where other children are failing to mature.
You've seen Robb painfully trying to grow up as fast as possible, and then Theon in this chapter does something super impulsive but very teenagery, and Robb just is pissed. That awkward moment, you might be growing up faster than your bestie.
I appreciate both of them in this scene. Robb is doing what you would want all of the Starks to do. He's the adult in the family, which is sad. And even though Mom hasn't shown up to say, hey, call the Bannermen, he's kind of already got the wherewithal to know to do that. And I like that he cares about his little brother enough to be pissed at Theon, though I'm not necessarily liking that he didn't care enough to not leave him alone while chasing after direwolves. In his mind, the odds of wildlings showing up to kill his brother was probably quite low.
I don't think they've had anything anywhere near Winterfell before.
So I get not liking Theon for this, but at the same time, I'm also wow, good shot.
The quiet moments before the wildling attack, they're mourning Jory and the guys who got hurt with their dad. And they talk about Jory taking them fishing. And again with, oh, that's who was babysitting the kids in Winterfell. Now I know who was parenting you. Unfortunately.
Well, and fortunately, because given the alternative.
A weird thing about them debating calling the banners, when you think about these are children making this decision to call the banners, because Kat has fucked off with all of the instructions. Ned has it written independently because he's been slightly busy.
Yeah.
And so you have a 15-year-old Rob, a 16-year-old Theon, and an 8-year-old are discussing whether they should call the banners. Welcome to feudal medieval times.
Yeah, it makes me like Rob even more. If Ned had half that, I don't know. I don't want to bash Ned yet. That will come. So I'm just going to say, like, I'm very impressed with Rob. Extremely impressed with Bran. And, you know, if you've been watching the videos, you know I'm not super thrilled with child characters, especially when they're like Arya. I think Bran's just going to have to be the exception because he's, aside from that stupid I'm going to climb a tower moment, he has shown this maturity that I think his sisters lack.
Well, he's having to deal with a real life. Like, his life is now suddenly nothing like he thought it was. And it's grow up or lay there and learn to fight in a new way. Oh, and speaking of fighting in a new way, when the wildlings attack, Rob gets back with the direwolves, and we finally get a sense that, oh yeah, no, the direwolves are totally monsters. They're pet monsters. They're like eating the dead wildlings, and even the Stark guardsmen that finally arrive are puking.
I don't know what it says about me that I read that entire scene with a smile on my face, but I did. Maybe I need help. I don't know. I was just kind of like, well, damn, you don't really need your guards anymore. You've got the direwolves.
Oh, and also the 2 wildlings that die, watch Deserters. Cough, cough, foreshadow, cough. Also, like, one of the only characters that the show made better than in the book is Osha the Wildling. I'm just throwing that out there.
I can't hear her name without thinking of work regulations and health codes.
Martin a lot of times does joke names. I really don't know why he picked Osha.
Well, to be fair, had they listened to her, they'd be alive.
This is true. Maybe
So
it is an actual joke name. Like, it even paid attention to the Osha rules.
Yeah. All right.
And now on to Tyrion 5.
Tyrion proves once and for all that there is no kill switch for cool. Not even when facing down the 2 idiots who have power over his life does he turn the dial down on his snark. In fairness, they weren't likely going to listen to him anyway. In his nice little cell, Tyrion bribes Mord, the guard, to tell Lysa that he's ready to confess his crimes. The moron pulls together an audience who, quite honestly, are lucky to see Tyrion at the height of comedy, confessing to all sorts of vices that have nothing to do with murder. Lysa loses her patience, but then Tyrion throws everyone for a loop and demands a trial by combat. The idiot picks Ser Vardis to fight for her, and Bran volunteers to fight for Tyrion, but he's a sellsword against a knight, so good luck, Tyrion.
I freaking love the Veil. I love the Eyrie. Like, the Sky Cells are still one of my favorite concepts Martin shoved into these books. Just the evil genius of the Sky Cells. Like, this floor is tilted toward it. It's trying to kill you. And it's freezing cold. And you just eventually step off into the blue or roll off in your sleep. Either way.
Yeah, I'd be screwed. I am the most fish-flopping sleeper there is. And you keep mentioning this Grateful Dead imagery. It just makes me sad I don't know more about the Grateful Dead.
Not gonna lie, back in college when we were first reading these books, we went and found Grateful Dead songs because the fandom always talks about the Grateful Dead imagery, and then when you start listening to it, you're like, oh my god.
So I'm probably gonna enjoy exploring that. I think that's gonna be my next assignment if my dog doesn't eat it.
I mean, technically, we are working on a medievally project, and a lot of the Grateful Dead songs are very folk song. But yeah, the Dire Wolves are from a Grateful Dead song. I think the Mountains of the Moon are a Grateful Dead song. There's even like later plot lines that you could honestly retitle with Grateful Dead lyrics. Martin has talked about how he tries to make the settings a character as well, even though it's sort of a more passive character a lot of times. But yeah, I think with the Veil, he just went full tilt. Because, I mean, King's Landing is cool. And Winterfell, I like it. But the Eyrie, the Veil, and Dorne.
Just dark,
yeah.
The isolationist thing. I like the Veil, but like I didn't watch the show so much. My only real comparison would be like the Mines of Moria, like that scene where they're crossing the mountain and then like there's that avalanche. And then there's Skyhold, that image in Dragon Age where they're scaling the mountains to find this castle of legend. So that's really all I have, but I feel like even that doesn't do it justice.
Speaking of settings, who put Mord in charge of the jails? Is this a Lysa idea? It has to be a Lysa idea.
It has to be. I kind of get the benefit of putting an idiot in charge of prisoners, but I also don't see the benefit. Like, I see both sides, but I wouldn't err on the side of not doing that.
He's gonna unintentionally kill people you want alive. This
Mm-hmm.
This is a problem.
And then we get easy to persuade, as we have seen.
I mean, that's true. It didn't take a lot of effort for Tyrion to get the guy to do what he wanted.
It's almost like maybe if you pay people to do things, they work harder for you. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's too anti-capitalism. I'm just saying.
I feel like Mort is not getting paid enough to to be effective at his job and is just taking it out on everyone else. But.
Well, that does bring me to a point that I think I'm going to hit on more with the Catelyn chapter. So just remind me about the capitalism conversation. Because right now I really do want to focus on how shitty a person Lysa is. We knew she was crazy, from the rumors before we met her. And then, the breastfeeding imagery, which I really wish I could forget and unsee in my head. But,
That scene has scarred so many people in this series.
Yeah. I don't know that Lysa, I don't know if she's a liar or if she imagined a reality and truly believes it. Because I think this is where we see like one of the first inconsistencies with the letter she sent to Kat and something she says in that the letter blames Cersei for killing Jon Arryn. But here she says it was Tyrion. And it can't be Tyrion because we're in his head and even he's going, was this my brother and sister? Because if it was them, why were they so good at killing Jon Arryn but shitty at killing Bran?
Right? It's a good question.
And again, I don't know if Catelyn maybe read it wrong because like we said in the last episode, we didn't actually see the letter. We just have to take it on faith that Catelyn knew what the language meant. Assuming that it was what Catelyn says, it's like, is it a lie or is she just crazy?
6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I will say some of that plot gets laid out a bit more book 2 and 3-ish. Do you want to go on to Ned?
Well, there is another thing I want to say. I'm sorry that I'm talking so much, but I get that everyone wants to marry this hoe because, they want to be in charge of the Vale. Wouldn't you think there would come a point that people would go, oh shit, she's insane. Why are we still willing to die and kill for her? Maybe we should push her off a mountain and see if we can maybe manipulate the 10-year-old because, oh my God, how do people see this woman and go, yeah, she's still someone I'd want to follow?
Good question. I think it's because they're all so sexist that they just think that, once I marry her, I can manipulate her and be in control, and it won't matter that she's crazy and stupid or evil or whatever she is at that 5-second interval, which she cycles through.
But even Catelyn's sitting there going, like, she's not going to marry any of these people. And, I mean, you can argue Catelyn's her sister and knows her better, but does she really? I mean, how many years have gone by? I would go as far as to say they're basically acquaintances now, and if Catelyn can figure that out, there's got to be some smart person there who can also put that together.
Jon Arryn hasn't been dead that long, and they're probably still gambling on she's changeable as the wind, and she might just randomly decide today if she's going to marry Vardis or one of the Waynwoods or Corbray. I think Martin actually made a lot more canon for the Vale than got put in the books because things went off the track it was supposed to be on. In the background for the rebellion, Jon Arryn raised the Vale for Robert, and half his bannermen didn't show up because they stayed Targaryen loyalists. There's a miniature civil war waiting to play out in the Vale again. And so I think they're courting her as much to get her between one of their camps as they are to get her.
That makes sense. All right, so I guess we go on to Ned. That wasn't at all to delay this. I love Ned, as everyone knows.
Oh, we believe you.
So, Ned has some pretty killer dreams, literally. He takes us back to when he fought 2 badass Kingsguard who basically destroyed Ned's fighting team before dying. But then he wakes up before we get any real answers, and we learn that it's been 6 days since his leg broke and Jaime Lannister has gone home. He gets all butthurt because Robert won't let him go after the Kingslayer, and Cersei, who is also there for some reason, gets pissy because Robert sucks at his job and is allowing this asshole to keep injuring her family. Robert loses his shit and slaps Cersei, but in fairness, she did just tell him she'd do a better job at ruling the kingdom than he would, which A, is true, and B, props to you, girl. Once she leaves, Robert confides in Ned that he feels maybe Rhaegar did win after all, and tells Ned he's still the hand, and I will solve all these problems when I come back from my hunt.
We hate you, Robert. We really hate you.
I hate most of the people in that room.
Fair.
Because I don't like Cersei. Putting it in perspective, I like Cersei better than everyone in that room, which tells you what kind of cesspool we're dealing with in that room. I know I'm supposed to stan the Starks right now and that Ned was being thrust as the protagonist, but I can't stand an idiot. I'm sorry. He's just so dumb.
And for authorial plot reasons and whatever else, George R. Martin pulls one of those unreliable narrator brain skip moments where we get that freaking Tower of Joy dream that the fandom has been yelling about for 30 years now, and everyone continuously argues about what it all means, and some of it doesn't really make sense when you think about it too hard. So how much of it was really dream sequency and how much of that was actually factual?
I'm only barely older.
Like, everyone forgets Game of Thrones has been out for a long time.
Yeah, we have the same amount of decades between us. That's something. I loved the dream, it just taken on face value, ignoring the symbolism and ignoring everything else. I loved the Kingsguard, like the way they were presented. I was like, oh my gosh, not only do I love you guys, okay, I'm just gonna say it was really sexy the way they were presented as like these mountains you couldn't defeat, and the fact that they took all 10 of those guys and whittled them down to 2 was awesome.
Sir Gerald and Arthur Dane have been like, oh, they've got fan followings. There's fan fiction.
I know what I'm doing this weekend.
Yeah, another thing I hadn't really thought about until this time, or maybe it'd been a long time since I thought about it, was Sir Gerald Hightower tells Ned in the dream the Kingsguard never flee. And then when he wakes up, he gets told Jaime Lannister fled. And he just buys it, despite he just had, Gerald Hightower, because I guess normal world rules don't apply to Jaime Lannister because we don't like him, so we just assume he would do cowardly things.
And even in the dream, they say Jaime turned his back on the cloak. Like, he was supposed to defend the king, and then he killed him. Like, I think a lot of people sort of look at Jaime and go, yeah, you're a Kingsguard, but you're not really a Kingsguard. You're not one of them.
Also, the kind of the math of, they have 8 cairns. It was 7 against 3. Ned and his friend Howland Reed lived, but you actually have another body in Lyanna. So what did you do with Lyanna's body? Did you put it a call to the emergency Silent Sister hotline? Was she like carried on a horse behind Howland? This is just a little awkward that you didn't just bury your sister and send the Silent Sisters back for her, nor you buried her with a Kingsguard, which is also weird. And then also there were 8 men dead again in the King's Landing brawl. Good job, Ned.
You did bring up a point that I find interesting, and it sort of kind of ties in with his wife, too, where it's like he remembers the faces of the Kingsguard, but not the faces of the men who fought with him. I think that speaks a lot to his character. We kind of touched on that when it's like Catelyn doesn't remember the names of the men who died for her. And it's like Ned might remember the names, but he doesn't remember the faces. And he says, well, so much time has passed, but these men died for you. They died for your sister. How do you...
And they were best friends, too. Did you catch that part? Like, yeah. He was talking about how like these guys were like his like ride or dies.
How are they not vividly in your head? I just judge him really hard and harshly for that.
I think it was trying to go with the misty, like you've gotten older and you just don't remember stuff, but the faces of the men you'd idolized and then had to kill or imprinted maybe more than your friends. But that seems really weird. And it's actually led to a tinfoil theory in fandom that the reason he can remember the Kingsguard is because they're not actually dead. They're dead in a sense in that they're now hidden somewhere. Like those cairns were for his friends or for looks and for stories, and it wasn't actually the Kingsguard that died, because that would explain why he can remember their faces a lot more clearly, because he might have seen them recently.
I think he might have. I'm broken, which would normally be like, let's end this video here, but unfortunately we do have one more point to discuss, and that's the Rhaegar won everything. Just, shut the fuck up, Robert. That's all I have to say. Like, you killed the bastard, and it's no one's fault but your own that you're still obsessed with beating him. Like, what more do you want?
Robert really is the high school jock who peaked in high school and then just didn't figure out life after that, and he just keeps reliving his glory days. Like, just put a Letterman jacket on the king and call it good.
It's just kind of like, everyone knows Rhaegar would have been a better king than you, but you're the king. And instead of proving everyone wrong, you just kind of harped on the fact that you were never as good as Rhaegar. And I don't blame Lyanna for not loving you. You're kind of a tool.
Look how it worked out for Cersei. She's miserable.
But man, what a badass. I imagine getting hit by Robert's not fun. But she didn't cry or anything. She just, I will wear this like a badge of honor. And I'm like, yeah, you're a bitch, but you're a hard bitch.
She's tough. I give Cersei credit for that. She doesn't back down. She has his number. She's like, I know you're a bully, and then if I just don't back down, you're going to shut up and go away.
Well, the problem is he's a bully who married a bully. So, I mean, she's not likely to forget what the Starks did to her brother. And again, it comes down to she doesn't like Tyrion, but that's a Lannister. And we see it finally in this chapter, her going, that's my blood that your wife basically kidnapped. And so it's obviously you didn't just arrest or order your wife to take Tyrion. You basically declared war on the Lannisters.
Which even Ned figured out when he found out that the BS Catelyn did. Like, that was not part of the instruction, girl.
Yeah, so we
Speaking of Catelyn.
Okay, yes, we're gonna hit Catelyn in the next episode. So, like and subscribe, hit the bell for more notifications so you'll see when that episode comes up. And as always, stay safe, read a book, and have a wonderful day.
Bye.